With us right now is Carolyn Kastner. Carolyn is the curator at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, and she has curated this O'Keeffe's Far Wide Texas exhibit. If you haven't been yet, you need to go. It is a once-in-a-lifetime, literally once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see rare watercolors that O'Keeffe produced early in her career. Watercolors, due to their sensitivity to light and the elements, really can only be shown on occasion. So you've got between now and October to go and see these treasures. Carolyn, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell us how this exhibit came together and what people will see when they go to the O'Keeffe.
Well, we have this amazing collection of art, and among the first treasures in the collection were 15 watercolors that were gifted to the museum on its opening, and they were gifted to the museum by the Georgia O'Keeffe Foundation. And the amazing thing about that is that the foundation represented Georgia O'Keeffe's estate. So at the end of her life, she had in her own possession most of the watercolors that she created between 1916 and 1918 when she was a professor of art in Texas. So they're very important to her. They were her treasures. But more than that, once we opened them up and looked at them, we found out that they weren't faded in any way, so they're beautiful watercolors, perhaps the most abstract work she ever created, again in her life, and that these were treasures that we needed to learn how to exhibit and protect. But along the way, we also had always the goal of putting as many of these together as we could, because it shows this amazing part of her life.
I'm sure most people don't realize that O'Keeffe had this West Texas life experience in Canyon, which is just a little bit south of Amarillo and the Lubbock area, West Texas. It's one thing that this Wisconsin girl went all the way out to New York City and then found her way to Santa Fe, but also West Texas. So did she go there to take that professor job?
She did, and it's an amazing story. She had been educated at Columbia University at the Art Institute. At the University of Virginia, she had been amassing this education to become a professor of art. And in fact, one of the things that brings great joy to everybody, I think, that enters this, it's not just the watercolors. We also have about 20 photographs of her. Again, they came from her collection. She had kept these little snapshots her entire life. And in those snapshots are an O'Keeffe that nobody can imagine, because once she became the icon that people do recognize, it's as though she wasn't born and aged into that. She was just born the icon of O'Keeffe, and of course that's not true. So in those photographs, you see a young woman in her 20s that was out driving, investigating this beautiful site, Palo Duro Canyon. One of the watercolors that's in the show demonstrates the power of that, a couple of oil paintings as well. But also is this collection of friends that she was hiking and camping with. She was very vigorous. She had been hiking and camping pretty much all of her life. So above those photographs in the museum, I found a quote that I just love. So she's writing to Alfred Stieglitz, the most important dealer, who's already looking at her artwork, and she says, "It's pretty certain that I'm going to stay here now unless they fire me." And she had committed herself to being an educator, and then of course 2 years later, after Stieglitz invited her, she was in New York working full-time as an artist. And from there, you pick up a story that often Texas then becomes the prelude to that. But in fact, those 2 years was a moment in her life where she was putting together the incredible power that fired a 60-year career as an artist. Her abstraction, her drawing practice were all parts of her daily life already when she came to West Texas. So the will to make an art career was already present in this young woman who wasn't yet 30.
So when we go to the exhibit, we're so used to seeing these defining Southwest canvases that O'Keeffe's known around the world for, and people from around the world come to Santa Fe to go to your museum and to enjoy them. What can we see? Well, first of all, when we look at these watercolors through that lens, they might look older and earlier, but I understand that these works in their own time were well received and something of a sensation?
Absolutely, and they were exhibited by Stieglitz in New York City on the gravity of this work, he put together her first show in 1917 in New York City. And of course, that's the third part, her drawing practice, her abstraction, but her relationship with Stieglitz was growing over this same period. She had met him in New York, but they had a correspondence that was pretty regular by the fall of 1916, which was her first semester teaching there. And so these works were shockingly abstract. And if you look at the images, you can recognize things that were still very important by the mid-20th century. Ideas about landscape and the sky and the horizon line, about things appearing and disappearing. She writes about it as well, that she was up and on the land before sunrise to watch the light change, not just to capture a sunrise, but to understand how does that sunrise become the spectacular moment that it is. Mm.
So people who love her later more iconic works that we
Yes.
see reproduced so frequently, they'll be able to trace the origins of that
Yes.
approach, color and light,
Yes.
line, landscape,
Yes.
abstraction. It's all present in these early works that we have this rare opportunity to see.
It is, and another part that's singular are her studies, her nude studies of herself. So she was without the benefit of what she had at school, which are models, and so she would sit in front of the mirror, and there are also watercolors that are studies of her own body. And so what you find that crosses the landscape, the architecture, the natural environment, and the nudes are the colors. And the colors of red are electrifying to her at that moment, and she writes about that. And Stieglitz, in turn, is giving her new access to better watercolors, and so the vibrancy of these images is the same palette, no matter what it is she's looking at. So our catalog has some of that in
Yes.
it, and I'm thinking of this sunrise when you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a catalog that was created by Radius Books here in Santa Fe, and each of the pages is a singular work of art. So as you go through the catalog, you're looking at individual works, and they're opposite the title. So it's as if it's an artist's book, and we have not placed a lot of work in front of this, simply our director's introduction. There's a wonderful essay at the back in this beautiful pocket that Radius Books created. So this was also a really fun project for us. And just to look at the front, which has one of the nudes on it, but if you take the dust jacket off, it's also stunningly beautiful. Look at this
it's lovely.
abstraction on the inside cover. And this is the product of a press that's here that has a national reputation. And so for David Chicky, publisher at Radius Press, he immediately saw the opportunity to create a catalog that would make the work look as fresh as it was when she created it. They are famous, as you know, for their artist books. So when he took this proposal to his board, one of his board members said, "You know she's dead." But the idea that David saw immediately was to house this in a structure that would evoke the immediacy of the watercolors. So there are 46 images in here. Most of them are the full size of the image. So you mentioned how fragile they are. So the works collected in this book put them all together, that they can be reviewed again and again over time.
Another special opportunity associated with the show, and I was so excited to find that they were actual size, that what
Yes.
people are seeing in here is the same size and shape and ratio
Yes.
that you'd see right at the show.
Yes.
So you've really got a chance to enjoy the artworks for perpetuity.
Absolutely.
Are there any special talks or events or other things associated with the show that people might want to know about between now and October?
Yes, all summer long, in fact, there will be programs going on. And Alex Gregory, who's curator at the Amarillo Art Museum, has been tremendously generous to us not only in the museum lending works to us, we have several loans from the Museum of Modern Art, from many museums across the country, but Amarillo is of course very close to this place, and they still hold her as one of the local treasures. So Alex will be here this summer talking about her work, where she lived, how she lived, and these are experiences that I've enjoyed when I visited Canyon, that people there know her, remember her, and her story is still alive. So Alex Gregory, a curator at the museum there, has made it his business to know where she lived and where that was in location to the college and to other things that were important in her life during that period. She didn't have a car, but she walked everywhere. And so he's going to be here. Amy von Lentel, who wrote the beautiful essay that brings O'Keeffe alive, she read every letter that O'Keeffe wrote between 1916 and 1918. And young O'Keeffe's voice is just what you might imagine of any 20-something-year-old. Just her enthusiasm for the hiking, for the men, who she wants to kiss, who kissed her that she didn't enjoy so much. These kinds of things all come out in the letters.
Nice.
So Amy has already been here at our opening. She'll be back. So we're going to have programs like that throughout the summer. We'll have some time in the gallery on a couple of occasions where we'll look at the artwork and talk about O'Keeffe and what it means that at such an early age she was already interested in an idea that was only about 4 years old. Abstraction had this explosive capacity between 1912 and 1914, and she was working on that almost immediately here in the United States, and this work comes from 1916. So you can see the relationship. It's very avant-garde work.
Well, all of that sounds compelling to me, and of course you can go to www.o'keeffemuseum.org and check out the calendar and all the, to find out all the things that are going on, whether you live in town or visiting. Check out that calendar. You don't want to miss these events at the O'Keeffe Museum, and you certainly don't want to miss O'Keeffe's Far Wide Texas. She's really our great iconic artist of the region, and of course your museum is the first museum dedicated solely to a female artist. And we're very honored to have that here in Santa Fe, and the work that you've done in Far Wide Texas and that the O'Keeffe Museum continues to do is a tremendous benefit and source of pride for our community.
Well, and it's a source of pride to us to continue to be able to tell this story.
Well, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for this exhibit. It was thrilling for me personally to see these watercolors and to get a copy of that catalog. And so thank you, and everybody, please go to the O'Keeffe Museum on Johnson Street. You've got till October to see O'Keeffe's Far Wide Texas. And again, these are once-in-a-lifetime watercolors, very rarely shown due to their fragile nature. So go out and take in more of O'Keeffe's beauty at the O'Keeffe Museum.